Today I'd like to share with you some tips for sewing jersey fabric using an overlocker, particularly if you're new to working with an overlocker and new to working with jersey fabrics. So the first thing I want to mention, if you're used to sewing garments, you probably already know about washing the fabric before you make a garment up because of shrinkage. Well, jersey fabric is the same. And in fact it's probably worse. It does shrink quite a bit. Lots of manufacturers will point out that their fabric shrinks by around about 5%. But I'd also like to mention drying, because I can be a bit naughty. I sometimes tumble dry my fabric if I know that I might accidentally sort of shove it in the wash, if it's something like kids' leggings or something, and it will shrink a lot. It's not very good for jersey fabrics to tumble dry it, so I don't recommend it, but it's just something worth thinking about before you cut your garment out. On an overlocker you've got 4 threads, unlike a standard sewing machine where you've got just the 1 thread. So I recommend you use all 4 threads for sewing your garments together because it makes a nice strong seam. Most overlockers you can reduce your threads down to 2 to 3 or even 2, but it's not quite such a strong seam if you're using 3 threads, so it's nice to use 4 threads to get a nice strong seam. Okay, so now you've got your machine set up with 4 threads, we want to look for the perfect balanced stitch. So you've got 4 different tension dials on your overlocker, 2 that control the loopers, which are shown here in blue thread and red thread on the back, and then you've got 2 needle threads which you can hardly see, but I think they're yellow and green on this example, which just look like 2 lines of stitching. But I just wanted to show you what the balanced stitch looks like. You've got the red thread meeting the blue thread right on the very edge, and you've got the needle threads on the back. You can't see any loops, they're just flat. So that's what a balanced stitch looks like. And when you open your seam, you shouldn't see too much stitching sort of grinning through the seam, just a tiny little bit. Okay, so the last thing I want to mention in this tutorial is the differential feed. And this does make a big difference if you're sewing different jersey fabrics that stretch at different rates. Basically what the differential feed is 2 sets of feed dogs that work at different speeds. So you've got a dial somewhere on your overlocker that will you'll be able to adjust the ratio at which they work together. So I just want to give you an example of this. If your first seam is looking really wavy like this, then you need to turn your differential feed up so it's nearer to the 2 end of the scale rather than the 0.7, because this has stretched the seam, and you don't really want your side seam of your garment to look like that, all wavy. The next one is when the differential feed is too high, and you can see how it's almost gathered the seam. So again, with this you turn the dial down to the 0.7 end of the scale to stretch that out a bit more. So what you should end up with is something that looks like that, hangs nice and flat, and the seam's nice and even. Thanks very much for watching this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it and found it useful. If you'd like to see more tutorials, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you.